At tonight's City Council meeting, a new ordinance focused on stopping encampments in the city was introduced. More than 20 public speakers voiced their displeasure with the ordinance and frustrations with 6th Ward Alderman Jake Reed for introducing it. WGEM's Zeke Shapiro attended the meeting and is live at City Hall. So Zeke, what happened there tonight?
Yeah, Olivia, people were not happy with the ordinance that was introduced tonight, which would have banned encampments in the city. Speakers voiced their frustrations by calling out the city for not doing enough to alleviate homelessness in the city. Some quoted scripture and some cited their own experiences dealing with homelessness in their comments. While the comments were all different, the message was the same. People did not like the idea of fining or even arresting homeless people as it was written in the presented ordinance.
I'm disgusted by the idea of jailing people for simply existing. I'm disgusted that someone had this idea to take someone at their lowest moment when they are, without any help.
When His Holiness Christ said, love thy neighbor as thyself, He didn't mean love the mansions and the houses on Main Street. He meant everyone, all our neighbors, the unhoused, the homeless, the impoverished.
Now, the ordinance was tabled indefinitely, and Alderman Jake Reed made the claim that his goal of introducing the ordinance was to motivate the residents to come out and share their thoughts and start a conversation about homelessness in Quincy.
My intention was simply to create the conversation. A ad hoc committee is being created now for the city to talk more in depth with those social service agencies, and I'd be more than happy to serve on that committee and be a part of finding the solution.
The ad hoc committee was proposed by 4th Ward Alderwoman Carol Eamon. Now, that committee, Eamon explained, could include members of the City Council, mental health professionals, and or members from social services agencies. Reporting live in Quincy, Zeke Shapiro, WGEM News.
Thank you, Zeke. Some public comments were made by members of social services organizations. Alderman also confirmed the homelessness discussion would continue at future meetings.